It's Sports Bowl time! I was just informed this is Super Bowl time. So yes, I admit I'm one of those people who couldn't tell you offsides from out of bounds. But one thing I do know is how to make delicious dishes for a really good Super Bowl party. So stay tuned as we bring together two classic Super Bowl party dishes and give them a nice little regional twist from the people who are playing. I got into my head I couldn't tell you who they are, but I'm gonna put their images here. They're wonderful athletes, I am sure. Grab yourself a drink, crank up that music, and let's get cooking. So first off, we're gonna take a party classic, which is the hot wings, and we're gonna give it a nice LA twist. Now, LA is known for using some pretty exotic flavors, so we're gonna do the same here. So what we're gonna be making is mango habanero hot wings. To get us started, you're going to need the following. So the greatest thing about these dishes is that they require very few ingredients and are relatively easy to make. The most difficult thing really to tackle here is the chicken does need some time to cook. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So go ahead and set your oven to 250 degrees and let's pat dry these little chicken pieces. So we're gonna want these pretty dry. The secret to good crisp skin on chicken, steak, is the drier the better. If there's water on there, it's gonna react poorly and you're gonna get something that's not as crisp. However, we do have something that's gonna help out in this arena. Okay, once our chicken is fairly dry, we're gonna take these and transfer them to our bowl. And before we touch anything else, we're gonna wash these hands. Okay, so the secret to very crisp chicken skin is really gonna be 3 ingredients. 1, we're gonna give this a good coating of fresh salt. Now the salt is gonna help to pull the moisture out from not only the skin, but also the fat that's right underneath it. Second is gonna be some freshly cracked black pepper, more for flavor than anything else. And now the magic to getting the crispest skin, baking powder. You will see some people tend to use a mixture of flour and baking powder, or you can use just straight baking powder. That's what we're gonna go with today. Now, I would use baking powder in general, let alone instead of flour. What baking powder does is also the same thing as to what flour does. It helps to desiccate the skin, which basically means draw out all the moisture. And the less moisture, the more crisp. Baking powder brings a couple other things in addition to that, some of which I'm going to chalk up to a little bit of kitchen magic. I've heard it can actually change the pH of the chicken. I'm not going to claim to know any of that. If you're interested in that, I'd say hunt it down on Google. I just know that this works, so we're going to go with it. Now, you don't need a specific measurement. I just like to put a light coating on, and then using a free hand, just go ahead and massage all that in. You'll know when you have enough when you stop feeling moisture. There we go. This is starting to feel much drier. So our little chicken wings have a nice coating, but it's not a heavy coating, and that's going to help us out. We're going to take a cookie sheet lined with both aluminum foil and cookie racks because we don't want these chickens sitting in their own fat. Otherwise, they're going to boil instead of technically bake. We're not frying. Before we put our chicken down, we're going to want to give this a good coating of cooking spray. Now, let's set down our chicken pieces. This is going to go into the oven for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to crank the temperature up to 400, 425, depending on how hot your oven gets. If your oven tends to run a little bit colder, I would say put it up to about 425, 450. If it tends to run hotter, take it to about 400 to 425. The reason why we're using 2 different temperatures on this is that the first one at the 250 is going to help melt out some of that fat that's right underneath the skin. This is also a good way of how you do duck. Not in the oven though, in the pan. So first we roast it low and slow to help pull out some of that fat. And then once we pulled out as much of that fat, then we really want to crank the spurs to it. And that's what's going to not only finish cooking the chicken, but also to give it its crispiest, crunchiest texture. There we go. All right, we're gonna go park this in the oven for 30 minutes at 250, then we're gonna crank it up to 450 for 40 minutes. Oh, this is the hard thing about filming right in front of your oven when the broiler's on because your butt starts to get really warm really fast. Okay, for the ingredients for our glaze, we're keeping this super, super simple. Now, a lot of places that you'll see, you'll find that they want you to put it on the stove and they want you to boil it down and reduce. You can, but I find that especially if you're using a marmalade or a jam, it kind of destroys the pectins and doesn't cling as well as you would like it to. Plus the flavors tend to get a little bit muddy, you lose those nice citric and acidic tones. So we're actually going to take this just at room temperature, and all we're mixing together is a mango, well, they're calling this a fruit spread. But basically it's somewhere between a jam and a marmalade. I don't know the difference between them, but you want to make sure it's super thick. Like if you turn it upside down, yeah, that don't move. That's perfect. Now we didn't have just mango there, so I got pineapple and mango, but I figured, it's LA. If you were to find pineapple, mango, habanero wings anywhere, you'd probably find it there. You don't have to go with this. You can always go with orange. You can go with really any kind of flavored jam that you like. This is just going to bring a nice sweetness and nice citric partner to what is our habanero sauce. Remember, you want it thick because we're going to thin it out a little bit with the habanero, and then we're going to put this under the broiler. So we want it to hold together as much as it possibly can. So I'm going to do a whole jar of this. Now I'm not going to tell you the measurements. You're going to customize this yourself. Start by adding a little bit, stir, and then taste. Stop once it starts to get a little bit warm. This stuff will continue to heat this up. Chemically speaking, means it'll still get spicier as the day continues. What may not be as spicy now may be spicier later. All right, we're gonna add a little bit. Stir. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to this because we need these flavors woken up. See, even just adding the habanero sauce, can you see how runny this is getting? If we did this over the heat, we would have to put it on for so long that we would need the sugars to basically caramelize and kind of blacken, really, just to hold this together. That's why I like doing these cold. All right, let's see where temperature's at. Oh my God, that's really good. I think that's, yeah, I'm getting the heat at the top and the back of the mouth. I think that's gonna be perfect. All right, let's get our wings on deck and dress those suckers. Here are our wings. Now, if they look like mummies, you know you did it right. I don't even know if the mic can pick this up. They're that crispy. We're gonna take our little painter's brush here, paint ourselves a little bit of happy. No need to be fancy with this. You can pretty much just Jackson Pollock it at this point. Also, don't forget to get both sides. We're going to have to flip these suckers. Now we're going to pop these underneath the broiler. You want to pull it out as soon as you start to see a little bit of blackened char. That means that it's got some nice cling and we can get it out of there. All we're doing really at this point is just setting the glaze. Now, no party would be complete without a sandwich. So since New England is playing, I thought we have to do a lobster roll, but we're going to make little mini lobster rolls that are nice and portable. You don't have to constantly have them in your hands while you're cheering and waving and pointing and all that. To get us started, you're gonna want some of these nice, tiny little dinner rolls. Now, I assure you they're not gonna come already cut up like this, so we're gonna have to do that ourselves. So, grab yourself a knife. Be very, very, very careful. We want to cut down but not through, and especially not through to your hand. So being ever so careful, cut down until you hit resistance, and you're gonna cut out a little rectangle, because we're going to punch the top down to help make a nice little base for our top-loaded lobster rolls. You could always take these, cut them in half, and toast them that way. This is just kind of nice because it makes it a little bit easier to eat. Once you've done that, set it back on the baking sheet and just press down on the top. That's going to not only carve out some space, but really solidify that bottom so we don't have to worry about anything falling through. Now, if you're like me and did some of these in advance, you just want to push them down one more time to make sure that they hold, because we need to butter the insides and then put them under the broiler just until the top parts toast a little bit. I'm not going to give you guys the time, and you guys need to keep an eye on it when it's underneath the broiler, because it will go from brown to black in a blink of an eye. Take some melted butter and just liberally baste the insides of these. Now, toasting this is not only going to add a little bit of that buttery flavor that we always come to associate with lobster rolls, but it will also help to kind of solidify the construction of the sandwich and hold it together a little bit better. I cannot claim to have invented this trick. I've seen it so many other places, but I haven't seen them do a lobster roll with it yet. So I thought this would be a great chance to give that a try. You can also brush the tops too, just to give a little bit of color on the top. All right, now we're gonna go set these under the broiler until they're nice and toasted on top. All right, now let's turn our attention to the inside of the lobster roll. So in this dish, I have about 2 cups of already cooked lobster. Now, if you can't find this already cooked in the store, just go ahead and pick yourself up some lobster tails, and then I like to steam them until it's cooked all the way through, because steam is a poor transfer of heat, which means you stand less of a chance of overcooking lobster. And lobster, like shrimp, like crab, will overcook in a second. Whew, that was quick. So we got a little bit of char on the top. That's fine, because the mix is gonna help cover that a little bit. But more importantly, this is nice and crisp. It's gonna hold up well. So if you got your lobster pre-cooked, just make sure to drain it really, really well. And you're gonna wanna bring this up to room temperature. Now, you can always serve these cold if that's your preference. However, I will say, if you serve them cold, you're gonna wanna bump up the salt and the seasonings just a little bit more, because cold kind of interferes with the taste buds on the tongue, which means it'll numb them. So what may taste perfectly seasoned at about a room temperature what may taste perfectly seasoned at room temperature will taste a little bit bland on cold. So to this, I'm gonna add a couple of handfuls of very, very finely diced celery to give it some crunch. Not too much, because we still want the lobster to be the star of the show. Now, if you like more crunch, feel free to add more. If you don't like as much, feel free to add less. This is what's nice about these recipes, is you can really tailor make them to exactly how you like them. I like a little bit of crunch, so I'm gonna put in just a little bit extra of the celery and a good couple of pinches of fresh, finely diced chives. You can do more, you can do less. This is just gonna give it a nice, subtle herby / onion flavor. Now, normally you would add mayo to this, but I find mayo's kind of bland. So what I like to use is a nice flavored aioli, which is basically just a fancier mayonnaise. So this one's a lemon herb aioli, which I thought would go pretty well with the flavors we've got going on here. Now, I don't like mine to be overly mayo-ish, so I'm gonna add just enough that it helps to hold everything together, but not so much that we're tasting mayo before we're tasting lobster, because that would be a crime to lobster. We'll start off with a couple of pats and then see how it's coming together and add more as needed. You can always add more. It's very, very hard to take out. So it's a little dry in some places, but we still have a couple more things to add. So I'm actually going to stop there with the aioli. And then I like to add just a little bit of spicy mustard, just to wake it up a little bit. Not too much, because we are going to be adding lemon to this. Now, some fresh salt and black pepper. Top it off with a good couple squirts of fresh lemon juice. Not too much. Lemon likes to take over the stage if you let her. Remember, lobster's getting top billing on this. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. Now we're gonna let this sit for a bit so those flavors can start to get together a little bit. And there you have it. Our LA Mango Habanero Hot Wings versus our New England Mini Lobster Rolls. Oh wait, we need a ref. There, now everyone's accounted for. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you know of someone who's also going to be hosting a Super Bowl party and is looking for some really cool ideas of what to serve, maybe hit the share button and send them the link. Coming up soon, we have Valentine's Day. So if you're looking for something a little bit special for your someone special, please hit the subscribe button down below so you'll get the notification when that one goes live. Bye everyone!